Presentation, I would like to re-emphasize on the fact that we are running on a schedule and each presentation will be given 10 minutes. At the 9th minute, you'll be notified of the time and you will be asked to stop at the 10th minute. So I kindly request all participants to ensure that they stay within the time limit of 10 minutes. So the next thesis is going to be presented by Andrea Castro Jimenez, Josue Zelidon Rodriguez, Veronica Capos Cespedes, and Angelica Solis Arce, undergraduate students from the University of Costa Rica, located in San Pedro, Costa Rica. The title of the thesis is Sociospatial Injustice, Analysis and Registration of its Manifestations at Barrio Sinaí, Costa Rica, guided by Professor Mario Vilata Flores Estrada under the theme Urban Management. I hope I got all your names right. Can we have the presentation, please?
Can you hear us?
Yeah. You are on. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to present our project. So we will begin right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angelica, and they are Veronica, Andrea, and Josue. We are from Costa Rica, and we are really excited to present our thesis named Social-Spatial Injustice, Analysis and Registry of its Manifestations in Barrio Sinaí.
Throughout the investigations in our academic formation, we've always had a social purpose for our project. This led us to choose a social approach to address some of the spatial dilemmas that people face every day when living in urban spaces. While working with informal settlements, we found an opportunity to dedicate our last project to focus on the many challenges these people face due to their spatial condition and social inequalities. These communities work together to access opportunities in the city.
So the main objective of our thesis was to analyze social-spatial injustice in terms of its material and symbolic manifestations in Barrio Sinaí. To achieve this, we have to develop an analytical framework that articulates social, economic, environmental, and political dimensions. Through the definition of variables of analysis, we aim to create a registry of Barrio Sinaí with different inputs that will allow decision-making in terms of territorial management.
So there's a permanence over time of multiple structural, economic, social, environmental, and political problems that widen the social economic gap between populations. Because of these situations, one of the greatest challenges is the high level of informality in which settlements emerge and grow. These inequalities become injustices when they exceed certain perceived thresholds of social acceptability. Addressing this problem provides an opportunity to record and expose the spatial and symbolic implications of normalizing injustice for the population and the institutions responsible for the main care of these communities. So this led us to the question, how are social spatial injustices materially and symbolically manifested in informal settlements, considering social, economic, environmental, and political dimensions.
In methodological terms, we divide our study into 3 phases. The first involved a lot of research to determine the scope of the analysis. The second one consists of the application of that research to an analytical framework to the neighborhood. And finally, we built a graphic and narrative registry with these findings.
Based on the theoretical framework and contributions, we managed to build this framework that links and articulates the structural and systemic approaches that determines social and spatial relations. And this was achieved through concepts and ideas of approaching inequalities. This allows understanding and analyzing the complex processes and dynamics underlying sociospatial injustice in an integral dimensional manner. We managed to build a number of interrelated concepts, starting with the notion of injustice in the city, passing through different forms of injustice, the trialectic of space, and the notion of habitat.
We therefore identified 4 dimensions that correspond to each dimension of injustice: social-spatial segregation, socio-environmental degradation, economic exclusion, and misrepresentation. As you can see in the presentation, each of them has associated its own variables and sub-variables.
So once we had designed the instruments that would synthesize all of the variables that were necessary to understand and identify the injustice, we had to test them in the community. So we have created a set of instruments that include, but are not limited to, interviews, site analysis, and collaborative mapping.
As you can see in the presentation, we applied our instruments in an informal settlement located in San Jose, Costa Rica. It's important to emphasize that this community is divided into 4 sectors that have different characteristics and were found in different periods of time.
Well, based on a systemic understanding of the relationships between the 4 dimensions and their social spatial impacts, instruments can be proposed that respond comprehensively to informal dynamics and the processes of constitution, organization, and physical, social, and cultural functioning.
So as an example of the registry, we would like to show you one of the results of the relationship between social and economic dimensions. For example, women are forced to work more hours in poor conditions due to the overload of reproductive and productive roles. According to the UN Habitat's New Urban Agenda 2020, women spend 2.5 more time than men in undervalued domestic and care work. This is evident in an interview with a woman who told us that she had to merge her business and home in order to take care of her daughter, perform household chores, and work in her own business.
As we can see, each form of injustice has been categorized according to the way it's manifested in the community, naturally or symbolically. For example, we can see how a community leader has arranged her home so that she can take care of her family and work at the same time, or how community advocacy activities are dominated by women.
It's important to emphasize that we didn't register that results separately. And this is one of the main achievements of our study. We managed to make connections between all of our findings, and as a result, we obtain an integrated approach that includes, as you can see, the relationships between all dimensions.
Well, with this graphic and narrative registry, some of the normalized and perpetuated inequalities in Barrio Sinaí were evidenced. We registered injustices according to the assignment of reproductive and productive roles to women, as well as forms of segregation and exclusion caused by fear and imaginaries about the community, among others. It became clear that political omission contributes due to the fact that the authorities don't have the adequate protocols to attend these issues. And finally, it was found that revisions in the diagnosis and site work cause decisions not to be made in time and development initiatives not to be carried out to completion.
Well, thank you for listening. If anyone has any comments or questions, we are at your disposal.
Thank you for that presentation. The urban space is definitely a collaborative product of social and economic, environmental and political parameters. Let's hear from our panelists on the same. Would you like to go first, Dr. Manoj?
No, I'll take it last.
So then can we hear from you, Dr. Napil?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your project, and really it's fascinating to see a group work in a graduation project. Really, it's always a challenge, and even it's really hard to work with a group of two. So I can see group of four. It's really good. Did you have fights when you're working, or it was smoothly cooperating issue? No, it's not a question related to your project. I mean, I really would like to understand, because we are always facing this issue when we're having like a group project. Everyone is fighting with each other at the end. So it was work smoothly with you?
I think the main thing that kept us like working together was like we have very different personalities. So so everything was new to some of us. So we had to work that out to, I mean, to dig in the problem and having different perspectives.
Well, thank you very much. I really would like to commend you on your graphical levels. I really enjoyed your presentation. It's really nice. Although I wish that to see more of your work. Maybe this is like the final result. I know that it might be something in the behind that you didn't present, because like, how did you extract the parameters that you have measured or came to the conclusion with? I mean, you have certain parameters extracting from the four aspects, which is the social, economic, environment, and political. So I think that you have extracted some parameters in order to measure whether they exist or not in your case studies, right? So I didn't see how did you extract the parameters. The next point, which is you're focused only on one category of the community, which is the women. I do understand that they are half of the society and we need to focus on them. But what about other categories? Did you consider them, like the elderly, like children, the right of using the space for other minorities or whatever? Because I didn't catch your project title. If it's just focusing on the women, that's fine. But if it's not focusing on the women, so this raises a question why you didn't mention the other categories from the society. I don't want to take much of the time, but really thank you. It's a really interesting project.
Thank you so much for the comments.
Can we hear from architect Nicolo next?
Yeah. Thanks again for your presentation from my side as well. And I mean, it's great to see that you're still together after discussing the thesis. So it means that the group work was great. I think your presentation was really clear and organized and really systematic. So all the informations and the workflow was clear and effective. And I think the most interesting part is what even my colleague Nabil was talking about, so the parameters and the variables. So I think it would be interesting to spend more time on them. And at the same time, and I'm going to link to this comment after, I really appreciate the storytelling. So it was also interesting to see 4 different voices in the discussion. And I think like what you presented today could be, let's say, maybe published as an article, because I think it's really clear. We have all the information, all the data. So I think I encourage you maybe to try to publish it, because it's in the end a review on an actual condition. And with this starting point, I think maybe a future work could be maybe to take this analysis, this registration of information, and maybe try to suggest a proposal. And going back to the parameters, maybe after your proposal, you could reuse the same variables to understand if your problem, if your project solution managed to solve the problem. So I think like the super interesting point is the parameters. And I think it could be really something to work on. And I mean, you're still together, so maybe it could be. And yeah, I mean, thanks again for your presentation. It was really interesting, and I hope it will have some future.
Thank you.
Shall I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, I too enjoyed the wonderful presentation that you had.
given. I do have a few questions before I comment. First question is, what was the motivation to take up this project?
Well, actually, we started working on a COVID plan protocol that was issued by one institute of Costa Rica, and we started working in this community, and we started to find many opportunities to like investigate and to develop the project once the community was already like part of the study that we've made with the protocol. So we talked to our teacher, and he was okay about it, and we managed to pull the whole idea into, with a very long process of putting the idea into this complex view of systematic relationships of injustice to this informal settlement that we worked with during the pandemic protocol thing.
Okay, is it the same program that you are all doing? All four of you are doing the same program?
Yes.
Same branch? I mean, yes? Okay, so how much time did you... Yeah.
Sorry, we made those two different protocols, but the communities were actually informal settlements, so we had that background in common. You know, the same occupation for informal settlements in Costa Rica.
Okay, and what's the time frame that you got to do this project? How much time? How much time did you get? How much time did you get to do this project?
Yeah, we like 2 years, 2
years and a half. Yeah.
Okay, it's 2.5 years of work.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a second part to this? Are you trying to transfer the findings to the design process?
No.
No. It will remain as a report or so something.
Yeah, it will remain as a registry because it's a tool to help the community develop ideas and develop other forms of management in order to access some of the opportunities. So it is a very complex context, and actually it was kind of hard to put it into 15 slides, you know, because I mean, we only presented the women part addressing the last question because it was one of the most outstanding findings of the community, the women approach to managing and developing ideas and pulling the community through this kind of inequalities that keep going on.
Yeah, but we also work with some other populations, some other.
Of course.
Yeah, that was just an example.
I really enjoyed the process and the way you could come up with this, identify these issues, and the way you presented it in a very structured manner. And as a designer, as an urban design consultant, I'm really interested in seeing the outcome. You know, you started mentioning about how you interacted with the community, and started coming up with those what do you call this, interactive points through which you try to explore and find out the heart, the issues. So that's what I was asking you about the second part. I mean, it will be very interesting to see if we can seriously, consolidate the whole findings together as kind of, design directions, like, what we can do next. Because this is a very global kind of a situation. I have been through this same situation in Gujarat. I have seen the same situation in many parts in different countries. And in fact, it reminded me of my thesis, where I was also trying to kind of do something as part of my PhD work, and I expected that that part will be there as the second, or maybe as a conclusion. That's all. I mean, I'm just expecting that. I mean, it's a kind of interesting work which we can really take it up in the future. I would like to seriously go through your work. Thank you so much.